The Valzoran Empire had spent many years studying Earth from far away. Their scientists watched human history, human wars, and human arguments. They saw humans fight each other on small things. They saw humans make mistakes again and again. They believed humans were slow, emotional, and divided. And because of this, the Empire reached one clear decision. Humanity would be easy to destroy. Inside the grand war chamber of the Valzoran flagship, Commander Thal Rekor stood in front of a giant star map. His tall, armored body gave him the look of a powerful leader. Blue lights shined across his scaled skin as he studied the small blue dot in the corner of the map, Earth. To him, it looked helpless. Around him, alien officers whispered about victory. They spoke as if the war was already finished before it even began. "Humans are behind in technology," one officer said. "They fight each other more than any enemy," another added. "A species like this cannot stand against the Empire," a third voice said with pride. Commander Thal Rekor nodded slowly. He believed every word. A long transport window opened, showing the giant invasion fleet outside. Thousands of ships were lined in perfect shape. Battle cruisers, heavy destroyers, missile carriers, and deep space fighters. Each ship was built with strong armor and advanced weapons. The fleet could crush planets many times bigger than Earth. It looked unstoppable. Commander Thal Rekor lifted his hand and the room fell silent. "The humans will not know we are coming," he said. "They will not see our fleet. They will not understand our power until it is too late. Their world will fall in one strike." The officers bowed their heads in agreement. The attack plan was simple. Enter the solar system quietly, disable Earth's satellites, destroy Earth's defenses, and force humanity to surrender in a single day. The Valzoran Empire expected the smoothest victory in its history, but something bothered Thal Rekor deep inside, something he would never say aloud. A strange detail in the reports. The humans were noisy, emotional, and chaotic, yes, but they were also unpredictable, and that was the one thing he disliked. Unpredictability. Still, the plan moved forward. The giant fleet entered faster than light travel. Stars stretched into long white trails outside the windows as the ships slipped through void space. Every alien on board dreamed of victory, honor, and rewards. Many imagined themselves walking on Earth's surface as conquerors. After several days in void space travel, the fleet slowed. The darkness outside became still again. The star map beeped. The navigation system announced arrival. Solar system reached. The officers cheered. Commander Thal Rekor stared at the bright sun ahead. A soft smile touched his face. Everything was exactly as expected. "Begin silent approach," he ordered. The giant fleet moved forward quietly, like a shadow sliding through space. No human signals were detected. No fighter ships flew out to meet them. No warning message appeared. It was strange. Even primitive species usually sent something, anything, when a foreign object entered their system. But Earth remained silent. Thal Rekor did not worry too much. In his mind, this silence only proved how weak humans were. The fleet continued to move. Planets passed by slowly. First Neptune, then Uranus, then Saturn with its beautiful rings. The officers admired the view, still relaxed. When they reached Jupiter, the sensors scanned for activity again. Nothing. No defense lines, no hidden bases, no warning systems. Earth looked unprepared. One young officer approached Thal Rekor. "Commander, sensors show 0 human military signals. No fleets. No satellites moving in defensive pattern. Humans are not reacting at all." Thal Rekor looked at the report and gave a small laugh. "They are sleeping. Earth does not know what is coming." But deep inside, he felt a tiny spark of confusion. Humans loved sending signals. They filled space with radio waves, broadcasts, and digital noise. Nothing about them was ever silent, so why now? As the fleet crossed Mars' orbit, the confusion grew. Mars had human machines on it, rovers, stations, drones. But still, there were no warnings, no alarms, nothing moving. It felt wrong. The silence was too perfect. Thal Rekor stared at Earth, now shining blue ahead of them. He whispered to himself, "Why is this world so quiet?" But he pushed the thought away. "Prepare final approach," he ordered. Across the fleet, weapons came online. Shields powered up. Engines glowed bright blue. The ships were ready for war. The last step was to enter Earth's orbit. After that, the bombardment would begin. As the Valzoran ships moved closer to the moon, the fleet scanners suddenly flickered. A soft distortion washed across every screen. The officers frowned. The sensors blinked again, then again. "Commander, we are experiencing a small interference," an officer said. Thal Rakor's eyes narrowed. "From where?" We cannot identify the source. It is blocking part of our long-range scan." "Is it human technology?" "No, Commander. It does not match any human pattern we know." For the first time, Thal Rakor felt a cold tension in his chest. The silence was not natural. It was planned. Earth was not sleeping. Earth was waiting. And the Valzoran fleet had already stepped into the trap.
Far beneath the bustling surface of our world, hidden from every map and every news report, secret chambers hummed with the quiet pulse of machines. These weren't places you could find. They existed only in the knowledge of a select few, a silent order known as the Watchers. Inside dark control rooms, bathed in the soft glow of countless screens, they sat, their ears turned to the vast, cold silence of space. For generations they had listened, waiting for a whisper, a signal, anything that didn't belong in our solar system. Most of humanity dismissed aliens as pure fiction, the stuff of movies and bedtime stories. But the Watchers knew better. Decades ago, they had caught faint, fleeting signals, ghostly whispers from the void, signals that were definitely not from Earth. So they waited. They trained. And now, after all these years, the silence was about to be shattered. A young operator, Maya Patel, stared at her console, her breath catching in her throat. A single red light flashed, relentless and stark against the dim background. She tried to speak, but her voice was a trembling whisper. "Director Hale, we have movement." The man beside her, Director Jonathan Hale, a veteran whose face was a roadmap of long nights and heavy decisions, leaned in. Every line on his face seemed to deepen. This was the moment he had dedicated his life to since he was a young soldier, the moment he had both dreaded and prepared for. He slowly took off his glasses, his gaze fixed on the incoming data. It was a fleet, a massive one. Thousands of ships pouring into the outer rim of our solar system. A chill ran down his spine, but his expression remained a mask of calm authority. He pressed a button, sending a silent, encrypted alert to every hidden base across the globe. "Full watch mode," he commanded, his voice steady and low. "Begin deep scan. Confirm their path. No public broadcast." Instantly, the control room surged with silent, focused energy. Screens flickered to life, displaying star maps, ship silhouettes, and long, cascading columns of what looked like alien code. The Watchers moved with a practiced efficiency, their actions swift but quiet. There was no shouting, no panic. They had drilled for this day for years. Maya zoomed in on the approaching fleet, her hands shaking slightly as she held the controls. "Sir, the ships are huge, they're armed, and their formation, it's an attack pattern." Hale nodded grimly. "We expected this." "But sir," Maya pressed, her voice laced with confusion, "why aren't they sending any message? Why this silence?" "Because they believe we are weak," Hale replied, his eyes never leaving the screen. "They plan to strike before we can even begin to understand what's happening." Maya looked at the fleet's trajectory again. They were moving fast, a straight, unwavering line aimed directly at Earth. "Sir, the world has no idea." "That is why we are here," Hale said, his tone resolute. "We watch. We prepare." He pressed another command. A detailed map of the moon appeared on the main screen, revealing something extraordinary. Hundreds of hidden human structures dotted the lunar surface, concealed beneath the regolith, railgun platforms, shield generators, advanced jamming towers, and deep underground bunkers. It was a defensive network designed to confuse a fleet, to slow an invasion, to give humanity a fighting chance. This was Earth's greatest secret. A secret kept from the public, known only to a handful of world leaders, the Watchers, and elite special military units. These defenses were the result of decades of careful planning, funded in secret, built in response to those faint alien signals that most governments had dismissed as cosmic noise. But Hale had listened. He zoomed out on the map as the alien fleet crossed Jupiter's orbit. "They aren't scanning properly," he observed, a flicker of something like satisfaction in his eyes. "They expect us to be asleep. That's good for us." In another section of the base, a technical team was busy activating a network of stealth sensors. These devices, hidden on decommissioned satellites and remote asteroid stations, had one purpose: to observe without being observed. Every second, they streamed crystal-clear images of the alien ships back to Earth. "They're spreading their formation, sir," Maya reported. "They'll reach the moon's orbit soon." Hale leaned back in his chair and let out a long, slow breath. "Begin Operation Mirror." The words hung in the air. A ripple of tension passed through the room. Every operator knew what Operation Mirror signified. It was the first phase of the contact protocol, a plan not for communication but for concealment, a plan to gather intelligence while the enemy was blind. Across the moon, dozens of jamming systems came to life, but they didn't blast out disruptive energy. Instead, they emitted soft, subtle waves designed to mimic natural space interference. The effect was harmless, quiet, and almost undetectable. The goal was simple: to make the aliens think their advanced scanners were malfunctioning, to sow confusion, to make them second-guess their own data. Far away, aboard the alien flagship, that confusion was already beginning to take root. But inside Earth's command center, the Watchers remained silent, their focus absolute. Maya still looked worried. "Sir, shouldn't we tell the world? People need to know what's coming." Hale shook his head firmly. "Not yet. Announcing it too early would unleash chaos. Panic would cripple us faster than any alien weapon. Fear would take control. Let the governments prepare quietly. Our job is to control the battlefield before the enemy even realizes they're on one." He tapped a screen, bringing the fleet into sharp focus. "And look, they still think we're blind." As the alien armada approached the moon, Hale gave the next command: "Activate shadow platforms." All across the dark side of the moon, silent, deadly machines powered up. These weapon platforms were masterpieces of stealth technology, invisible to conventional scans. They were built deep inside lunar rock, covered in dust, perfectly disguised to look like the moon's own rugged surface. They didn't fire, not yet. They simply watched and waited. Maya swallowed, her eyes glued to her monitor. "Sir, the fleet is slowing. They're sensing something is off." "That was expected," Hale said calmly. "They don't know us. On the surface, humanity appears loud, disorganized, and chaotic, but when it truly matters, we can be silent too." The room fell quiet once more. Every operator watched the alien ships with unwavering eyes. No one moved from their post. No one spoke without purpose, because this was it. Earth was no longer guessing about extraterrestrial life. Earth was no longer blind. Earth had spent years learning, preparing, and building in the shadows. And as the aliens cruised into our corner of space, they didn't enter an empty sky. They entered a meticulously crafted trap, a web woven from fear, caution, and the unyielding human instinct to survive. The Watchers waited. The machines hummed, and deep below the surface of the planet, humanity held its breath, ready for the moment the trap would finally close. If you want to see what happens next, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part. The Valzoran fleet sliced through the blackness of space, approaching the moon. On the bridge of the flagship, Commander Thal Rakor watched the distant, glowing blue marble of Earth. So far, everything was going exactly as planned. Almost too easily. There had been no human response, no desperate military maneuvers, just silence. He expected a primitive species to make noise. This quiet was unsettling. As the fleet passed into the moon's cold shadow, the bridge flickered. Scanners blinked erratically. A strange static like digital dust washed across every screen. Within moments, the interference grew, swallowing half their data in a wave of white noise. "Commander," an officer reported, his voice tight. "Our long-range scans just dropped to 40%. Thal Raker's brow furrowed. "Restart the scan." "We did, sir. The interference is still there." He stepped closer to the console. "What's the source?" "Unknown. It doesn't match any known human broadcast." The commander's eyes narrowed. Human technology was crude, their signals loud and messy. This interference was different. It was clean, controlled. "Adjust the frequency," Thal Raker ordered. "We've tried all channels, Commander." "Then increase power." "It's having no effect." For the first time, a sliver of doubt crossed the commander's stoic face. Another officer turned, his expression grave. "Sir, I think we're being blocked." "Blocked?" The word hung in the air, heavy with implication. "Impossible," Thal Raker snapped. "Humans don't possess that kind of technology." "Perhaps they had help?" someone murmured. Thal Raker shook his head. "There are no other empires in this sector." But even he could hear the uncertainty in his own voice. Outside, the moon remained a silent gray sentinel. Nothing looked out of the ordinary. And yet, the interference was intensifying. Thal Raker opened a fleet-wide channel. "All units, prepare for defensive scans. Something is disrupting our systems. Stay alert." The alien warship spread into a cautious formation, weapons glowing on low power. But inside the control room, more alarms began to scream. "Commander, navigation is struggling. Gravity readings are unstable. Short-range scanners just went dark." Thal Raker's heart began to hammer against his ribs. "Explain this." "We can't, sir. It's like something is bending our signals." An eerie silence fell over the bridge. They hadn't just entered enemy territory. They had been allowed in. No resistance meant someone was waiting. Someone prepared. "Run a surface scan of the moon," Thal Raker ordered, his voice low. "I want every rock, every shadow checked." Seconds stretched into an eternity. Then, the report came. "Sir, I can't get a clear reading. There's something under the surface." Thal Raker turned sharply. "Repeat that." "We're detecting shapes beneath the lunar crust, not natural formations. Straight lines, metallic signatures." The officer's voice dropped to a choked whisper. "Commander, the moon isn't empty." A cold shock rippled through the bridge. "Impossible," Thal Raker breathed. "Humans lack the resources for bases of that scale." Another officer looked up, his eyes wide with dawning horror. "Sir, these structures are massive. They look like weapon platforms." Panic ignited across the bridge. "Weapons? Here?" Thal Raker slammed his fist on a console. "Lock targeting systems on those structures." "We can't, sir. The interference is blocking all precision aiming." He stared at the screen as the static pattern began to shift, coalescing, moving towards them like a phantom wave. Something was coming. "Bring us closer," Thal Raker commanded. "We need to see it with our own eyes." As the flagship drifted forward, the moon's surface flickered. A faint blue line traced itself through the gray dust, then another and another, forming a glowing grid that pulsed beneath the surface. "What is that?" someone whispered. The grid flared, then vanished. A chill of pure dread shot through Thal Raker. "Shields up." But it was too late. A silent flash erupted from the moon. There was no sound, no explosion, just a blindingly fast burst of kinetic energy. A railgun. A human railgun. The first cruiser in the Valzoran formation shuddered. A clean, impossible hole punched straight through its center. A moment later, the ship disintegrated into a cloud of silent, floating wreckage. Alarms shrieked across the fleet. Commander, we're under attack. Unknown weapons. They're firing from the moon. Thalrakor stared in stunned disbelief. Humans built this? But the assault was just beginning. A second railgun fired from deep beneath the lunar surface, then a third, and a fourth. Silent, invisible, and devastatingly fast. Each shot tore through alien ships before they could even raise their shields. Cruisers burned. Destroyers careened into each other. Chaos consumed the mighty fleet. And then, the final terrifying blow landed. A message appeared on every alien screen, written in their own language. 3 simple words: "We see you." Those words were sharper than any weapon. They shattered the pride of the Valzoran Empire, revealing a horrifying truth. Earth was not weak. Earth was not asleep. Earth had been waiting. Thalrakor's voice trembled for the first time in his long career. We walked into a trap. The moon lit up again. More railguns charged, and the silent invasion was silent no more. What an incredible story. It just goes to show you should never underestimate your opponent. The Valzoran fleet, a symbol of galactic might, shattered the silence of space. But their roar of conquest quickly turned into a symphony of panic. Alarms screamed through every ship, red warnings flooding every screen. Aboard the flagship, Commander Thalrakor watched, frozen for a heartbeat, as another of his cruisers vanished in a silent, violent explosion. The railgun shots were invisible ghosts. No light, no fire, just pure kinetic force tearing his fleet apart before his crews even knew what hit them. "Shields! Get full shields up now!" Thalrakor's voice thundered across the bridge. But his commands were met with the trembling voices of his officers. "Commander, interference is blocking shield calibration. We can't lock onto their firing positions. The shots are faster than our sensors. Engine units are losing power." The fleet, once a proud, disciplined armada, was dissolving into chaos. Thalrakor slammed a fist on the console. "Return fire, target the lunar surface, now." Dozens of alien ships unleashed their fury. Blinding energy beams raced toward the gray, cratered ground. But just before impact, the beams bent, scattered into bizarre angles, and faded into nothingness. "Commander, our targeting is being scrambled," an officer cried out. "By humans?" Thalrakor growled, his voice laced with disbelief. "How?" Another officer's shout cut through the confusion. "Surface structures activating again, multiple signatures, incoming fire." Across the moon's surface, a bright grid of blue lines pulsed with energy, stronger this time. Hidden doors slid open beneath layers of ancient dust, revealing enormous metal barrels rising from the lunar soil like giants waking from a long slumber. These were human railguns, far larger and more terrifying than anything Thalrakor thought humans could ever build. A series of silent, deadly flashes followed. 5 shots, then 5 more. Then 12 at once. The Valzoran ships were torn apart like paper models. A destroyer was split cleanly in 2. A carrier lost its engines, spinning wildly before crashing into its own sister ships. The Valzoran Empire, which had marched into Earth's system with absolute confidence, now found that confidence shattered into a million pieces of wreckage drifting in the void. Thalrakor fought to regain control. "We need distance. Pull the fleet back. Out of range." The navigator shook his head, his voice trembling. "Sir, something is pulling our ships off course." "What do you mean?" "Our gravity readings are wrong. It's like the moon itself is generating false gravity wells, trapping us." Thalrakor's eyes widened in horror. Humanity hadn't just built hidden weapons. They had weaponized the battlefield itself. He stared at the moon, his mind racing. Humans were supposed to be primitive, lost in their petty conflicts. But someone on Earth had been preparing for a war with an enemy they hadn't even met. "Commander!" an officer screamed. "We're detecting human drones leaving the moon." From hidden tunnels, swarms of tiny black shapes poured into space. They were sleek, silent drones with no lights, weaving through the surviving alien ships with unnerving precision. "What are those?" Thalrakor demanded. "Unknown, sir. They don't match any known Earth design." The drones attached themselves to the hulls of the Valzoran ships like metallic parasites. One by one, the mighty alien vessels flickered and died. Lights vanished. Engines went silent. Artificial gravity failed. An engineer cried out, "The drones are hacking us. They're attacking our systems directly." "Impossible," Thal Rakor roared. "Their technology is too basic. They can't understand ours." But a nearby officer, his face pale, whispered, "Commander, someone does understand. Someone has been studying us." For decades, the Valzoran Empire had watched Earth, but they never realized that Earth had been watching right back. Down in a deep underground command center on Earth, Director Hale watched the battle unfold with cold calm. "Moon platforms Alpha through Delta are at full power," a technician reported. "Drones entering Phase 2, said another. Hale simply nodded. "Continue, don't push too fast. Let them collapse under their own confusion." Maya Patel, standing beside him, whispered, "They look afraid." Hale replied without emotion, "Good. Fear makes them slow, and slow makes them predictable." An alert flashed. A large alien cruiser was charging its main cannon, a desperate final gamble. "Then stop it," Hale said simply. On the moon, a single railgun re-aimed. It fired one projectile. The silent slug of metal hit the alien cruiser at the precise moment it was about to fire. The ship's own weapon overloaded, detonating in a catastrophic explosion that sent a shockwave ripping through the panicked fleet. "They can't handle coordinated pressure," Hale said quietly. "They expected a sleeping world. They found a prepared one." In the dying light of his bridge, Commander Thal Rakor made one last attempt. "All ships regroup. Prepare for an emergency warp jump." Only a few crippled ships responded. The rest were dark, drifting, or destroyed. As more drones swarmed his own flagship, Thal Rakor stared at the silent blue planet. "Humans," he whispered in awe and terror. "What have you become?" Another railgun fired from the moon, and the answer came not in words but in silent, overwhelming force. Humanity had become the ambush. The Valzoran fleet was a wreck, once a proud armada. Now it was just a cloud of drifting, burning metal trapped in the moon's orbit. Commander Thal Rakor stood on his bridge, the ship groaning around him as alarms screamed like dying animals. His officers were scrambling, fighting systems that had turned against them. Reports flooded in. Drones inside their ships, gravity failing, power systems offline across multiple cruisers. The invasion force was a frightened, confused mess. "Where are the drones coming from?" Thal Rakor demanded, his voice tight. An officer answered, his own voice trembling. "Sir, they're coming from everywhere. Hidden stations. We can't track them all." The commander's blood ran cold. The humans weren't acting like prey. They were acting like hunters. Far below, in a secret underground command center, Director Hale watched the chaos unfold with a chilling calm. "Sir," his top analyst, Maya Patel, reported, "the aliens are firing on our decoys again." Hale simply nodded. "Activate mirror phase 2. Instantly, the room came alive. Operators typed furiously. Hidden systems on the moon shifted their frequencies, and suddenly the space around the alien fleet was flooded with dozens of phantom signatures. Fake human ships, false missile launches, ghost weapon strikes, all indistinguishable from the real thing. Panic erupted on the alien bridge. "Commander, 30 new human ships approaching from the dark side," another officer yelled. "Missile launches detected," Thal Rakor barked. "Evade!" The Valzoran ships scattered, dodging imaginary threats, firing at ghosts. In their panic, they collided, their formations breaking apart completely as systems overloaded from processing countless false targets. "What is happening?" an officer cried out, hands shaking. "How are they controlling our scanners?" Thal Rakor's voice was grim. "They're creating illusions. They studied us. They know our signals, our weaknesses." He swallowed hard. "This planet is not what we believed." Back on Earth, Hale observed the enemy fleet chasing shadows. "Shall we launch the boarding team, sir?" a technician asked. "Not yet," Hale replied. Drones first, humans later. We test their ships, break their systems, learn everything. On the main screen, tiny human drones slipped through damaged hulls. Their mission was brutally simple: read, copy, and break. One drone entered a cruiser's engine room, scanned its systems, and sent the data home. Another pulsed a destroyer's bridge, instantly shutting down its electronics. A third disabled only the weapon controls on another ship, leaving the crew alive but defenseless. Maya watched in awe. "Sir, how did we build machines this advanced so quickly?" Hale's reply was quiet but firm. "We didn't build them fast. We built them slowly, quietly, for years. Humans learn quickly when danger is near." He paused. "And the aliens have been near for a long time." Maya nodded. "They think we're weak." Hale's lips curved into a slight, cold smile. "Then let them keep thinking it." In space, the Valzoran fleet was tearing itself apart from the inside. Weapons failing. Engines offline. Internal maps are corrupted. "Commander, someone is shutting us down from within." Thal Rakor stared at the serene blue and white globe of Earth on his screen. Peaceful, quiet, a beautiful lie. A new alert flashed red. "Commander, the flagship is being scanned." Before he could even ask by whom, every screen on the bridge went black. A moment later, a single sentence in plain human text appeared. "Phase 2 complete." An officer whispered, "What does that mean?" He didn't get an answer. The ship lurched as gravity tilted violently, sending everyone sliding. The flagship groaned, as if caught in a giant invisible fist. A new swarm of drones descended, latching onto every weak point on the hull. Thal Rakor's voice was barely a whisper. "We are being dismantled." On Earth, Hale watched the alien flagship die. "Should we continue the attack, sir?" Maya asked. Hale shook his head. "No. Let confusion finish what our weapons started. A collapsing army destroys itself." He looked at the screen one last time. "We didn't defeat them with strength. We defeated them with preparation. Now, begin Phase 3. In the void, the drones executed their final command. Across the entire Valzoran fleet, gravity ceased, lights died, and engines went silent. The once mighty armada floated helplessly. Thal Rakor finally understood. Earth hadn't just prepared to defend itself. Earth had prepared to win. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another episode. The iron fist that had once clenched countless star systems was now trembling. High in the central command towers of the Galactic Empire, alarms screamed a symphony of failure. Red lights pulsed across polished walls, reflecting the panic in the council members' eyes as they shouted over one another. Every plan, every secret weapon, every strategy had proven useless. On the bridge of the flagship Oblivion, Admiral Kyle stared in disbelief at the massive display screens. His invasion fleets were scattered, shattered. Their meticulously coordinated attacks on a small backwater planet called Earth had failed catastrophically. Reports of devastating losses flooded the comms channels, each one a nail in the coffin of their supremacy. How did this happen?" he whispered, his knuckles white as he gripped the console. The answer was simple, yet utterly terrifying. The humans had adapted. They had learned faster than anyone could have possibly imagined. Every assault, every ambush, every feint the Empire had devised was met with an unpredictable and devastating counter. Earth's defense wasn't just technology. It was raw ingenuity, unyielding courage, and a desperate will to survive. In the war room, General Terrace slammed his fist on the holographic table. "Our intelligence said they were primitive, weak, and now look at them. They've turned our own forces against us." His voice cracked, a dangerous mix of fear and frustration. Around him, high-ranking officers avoided his gaze. No one had an answer. No one could explain how the prey had become the hunter. Chaos spread like a plague through the Empire's ranks. Communication lines were jammed with ghost signals. Vital supply routes were severed by phantom strikes, and once loyal allies began to question their allegiance. From the distant colonies, governors sent messages not of support, but of open rebellion, refusing to follow orders that led only to their own destruction. Kael's mind reeled. He had dedicated his entire life to the Empire, climbing the ranks, orchestrating campaigns, and executing flawless strikes. Now the magnificent war machine he had helped build was collapsing around him. For the first time, he didn't just question his strategy, he questioned the very foundation of their empire. How could a species that seemed so fragile, so insignificant, outsmart the greatest military power the galaxy had ever known? Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity watched the Empire's self-destruction from hidden stations and orbiting satellites. Scientists, soldiers, and ordinary civilians had all played a part. They had coordinated 1,000 small cuts, strikes that seemed minor on their own, but together wove a web of chaos across the Empire's vast networks. They had learned to anticipate the invaders' moves, exploiting psychological and logistical weaknesses no one in the Empire even knew existed. Back on the flagship, a priority message arrived. The Emperor himself. A shimmering hologram materialized, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. "Report," he thundered. "Why are we losing control? Why is Earth not on its knees?" Kael took a deep breath, the words tasting like ash. "Sir, the humans, they are stronger than we predicted. Their tactics, they are unprecedented." The Emperor's glare could have melted steel. "Unprecedented? Are you telling me our entire empire is being brought to heel by a single primitive planet?" "Yes, sir," Kael said, his voice quiet but firm. The truth, however painful, had to be spoken. "And the infection is spreading. Our colonies are beginning to rebel." The Emperor's hands trembled, clenching into fists. A dreadful silence hung in the air before he spoke, his voice low and terrifying. "Then we will show them the full, unbridled power of this empire. No mercy, no hesitation. Crush them all." But Kael knew. Orders could be given, but the game had changed. The Empire was no longer in control. The once unbreakable walls were cracking, and chaos was about to spill into every corner of the galaxy. In the capital, panic filled the streets. Soldiers abandoned their posts. The Empire was dissolving from within, and from the shadows of the crumbling towers, ambitious officers began to whisper of betrayal and new alliances, ready to carve their own kingdoms from the corpse of the old one. The galaxy held its breath. The mighty Empire was fractured, vulnerable and desperate. And humanity? Humanity was just getting started. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into epic sci-fi tales. See you in the next one. The remnants of the Empire drifted, their fleets scattered and broken. But in the cold, silent dark, humanity was far from finished. Every sacrifice, every calculated strike, every desperate act of courage had led them to this single, pivotal moment. The final push, the great reclamation of the galaxy, was about to begin. From the bridge of his flagship, the Oblivion, Admiral Kael watched the chaos unfold. He, who had once led the Empire's grand armada with unshakable pride, was now a helpless spectator. Communications were failing, supplies had dwindled to nothing, and the morale of his officers had shattered. The humans, they had somehow turned a hopeless defense into a relentless, unstoppable offensive. He could see it with painful clarity now. Earth was no longer just defending its borders. It was leading a galactic charge. On Earth's surface, deep within the United Defense Coalition's command center, the air was calm but electric. Captain Mira, a brilliant young strategist who had risen from obscurity, gazed at the holographic map glowing before her. "This is it," she declared, her voice steady. "Every fleet we have, every strike team, every weapon we can possibly deploy, it all hits tonight. No hesitation, no holding back. We end this." Her words were simple, yet they carried the immense weight of an entire world's hope. Soldiers, scientists, and civilians, everyone had contributed to this day. They were ready. The Empire had always underestimated humanity's will, and now that fatal mistake would cost them everything. In the vastness of space, the human assault struck like a sudden, violent thunderstorm. Fleets materialized from hidden positions, ambushing the disorganized imperial ships. Mines laid with precision detonated near capital ships, crippling their engines and weapon systems. Elite boarding teams infiltrated enemy vessels, swiftly neutralizing command staff and seizing control. Every single move was precise, every attack perfectly calculated to leave the once mighty empire utterly helpless. Admiral Kale could only watch in horror as one flagship after another went dark. The humans weren't fighting with blind rage. They fought with intelligence, unity, and a courage that proved more powerful than any superweapon the Empire had ever conceived. Panic quickly spread to the Empire's capital world, igniting the flames of rebellion. Governors who had followed the Emperor's decrees for centuries now openly refused his orders. Citizens rose up, not with primitive weapons, but with the same cunning and resourcefulness that had always been humanity's greatest advantage. Star systems that had once trembled in fear of the Empire now openly supported Earth, cutting off critical supply lines, sabotaging Imperial infrastructure, and turning the remaining forces against each other. The Emperor, isolated and alone, watched his dominion crumble through distorted holographic feeds. Rage burned within him, but it was overshadowed by a chilling fear. There were no plans left, no fleets to summon. The humans had outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and outlasted him. His empire was collapsing from every direction. Aboard the Bridge of the Oblivion, a devastating truth finally dawned on Admiral Kale. The humans were not merely survivors fighting for their home. They were the new masters of their own destiny. And he, a loyal servant of the Empire for decades, had failed to stop them. The realization hit him harder than any plasma torpedo. They are unstoppable, he whispered, his voice barely audible. As the last of the Imperial fleets fell silent, there was no celebration on Earth. No cheering, no triumphant parades. They had fought for survival, and now, a new responsibility rested on their shoulders. Leadership. Earth became a beacon of hope and unity for a war-torn galaxy. Worlds once crushed under the Empire's heel now looked to humanity not just for protection, but for guidance. Standing on the observation deck of her flagship, the Unity, Captain Mira watched the distant stars. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "We've proven one thing. Humanity will never bow. We will survive. We will thrive. And we will always fight for our future." In the endless void of space, the fallen empire served as a stark warning. Power without understanding, fear without strategy, and arrogance without respect. These were the seeds of its destruction. Humanity, once underestimated, had risen from the ashes, stronger than ever. And across the galaxy, a new whisper began to spread. The age of humans had finally arrived. Thank you for joining us on this epic journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. We'll see you in the next one.